right, so when it comes to placing this eye joint, I have to be very careful because I want to make sure it's in the exact correct position it's supposed to be in. Her eyes are really big. Any misplacement of the joints will be very visible when the eyes are rotating. Now, this is something that could have been resolved at the defining geometry stage. I mentioned before that if you want to use the autoplace feature, you would have to do all these definitions. But because I went with a template, I don't get the definition now. And I think also when you get to the face fitting, this is something that is also possible to do over there. But I'm just going to do it here because I have some very unique geometry. I want to make sure I'm getting the joint in the correct place. So the first thing I'm going to do is select one or two pieces of the eye geometry, actually two pieces. So I'll select the cornea, thing that represents the cornea, and I'll leave the pupil out. I'll just select the iris, sclera, and then this transparent mesh that is considered the cornea with the bulge in it. So I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate them, and I'm going to get them out of here. And I'm going to isolate them to show you what I have. You see this piece here, this cornea piece here, as far as the profile is concerned, this is not a perfectly symmetrical mesh in the profile. In the front, it is more of a symmetrical piece. So trying to get the center of this is going to be a problem. And the same applies for this, the sclera and the iris. Because it's been cut off to simulate the dip in the iris part, it's a little harder to get the center, but there's a very simple solution to getting the center. And I could use any one of these two meshes, but I'm going to use the sclera, this one. All right, and since this is a duplicate mesh, I can do what I'm about to do without having to worry about deleting history. So when I look at it, the largest circumference on this is more likely where the center of this original sphere was, right? So this edge over here, let me get the other one out of the scene and just isolate the iris and the sclera. So this, if I go into the left view, if this was a full circle, it'd be very easy to get the center. I'll just select all the vertices, and if I created a cluster, it will put it right in the center of the circle. If I do it now, it will place it based off of how much has been cut over here. So it will shift it a little bit away from here and put it here to try to get the center of the mesh because it's not symmetrical in the profile. But the easy way to find that center point is this right here. This is the widest circumference. So in a sphere, the widest circumference is where the center is for the whole thing. So this is most likely the center I'm looking for. So with all those edges selected, I just double click to get those edges. If I go to my rigging and I go to deform and I say create a cluster, it has created a cluster in the center. Now, this is where I can snap my bone to, my eye bone to. But before I do that, I want to run a test. So I'm going to create a locator, and then I'm going to match the locator to the cluster's position. So I'll go modify, match transformations, and all transformations. So now the locator should be there. And then what I'm going to do is select my duplicate geometry, put it underneath the locator, and then bring the character back. And I'm going to start rotating this. I should probably hide the original eye geometry here, there. So I'll hide them temporarily. And I should probably also hide the pupil. Okay, so with this locator selected, if I start rotating, I can see that I've gotten the exact center because when I rotate, I don't have any weird penetrations of the eye, right? Or I have the correct amount of penetration. That bulge of the cornea is supposed to be pushing on the eyelids, right? But you can see it's rotating correctly in the head. So that is in fact my center, and we're good to go. So what I can do now is just select that cluster, isolate my eye joint, and I'll just snap, hold down the V key, and snap my eye joint to it, and thankfully it moves the end joint of the eye too. So this was relatively easier than I thought. But yeah, now that I'm done with that geometry, I can delete that duplicate geometry and this cluster. We don't need it anymore. So I can clear them out of the scene and bring my original eye geometry back. And then now I'll go into the left view and grab the eye end and move it so it's at the end of the eye, because that's where it's supposed to be. And actually I should probably put it at the end of the cornea bulge. I'm going to go shading, wireframe unshaded, and I'm going to grab this thing and put it right there. All right, and I will hit the update now button, even though I don't need to, because it moved them together, so I think it's fine, but I will just hit the update now button. And you can hit it as many times as you want, or just after you finish placing everything. All right, so the eye is now in there. Let me make sure extra joints are on. I meant to turn on wireframe and shading. So the eye is now in the correct position, and it's time to move on to the ears. All right, so the ears are going to require a similar approach to getting the joints in place, but in this case I need a duplicate of this body right here. So I'm going to duplicate the body and Shift P to get it out of here, and then hide the original just temporarily. And I'm only doing this because I'm adding clusters to this geometry and I don't want to add history to my main geometry, so that's why I'm doing it on a duplicate. And I'm going to go into the component mode, and I'm going to grab several different vertices that will produce a centered cluster, or a cluster centered in the correct location when a cluster is created from them. So here I've picked 4 points around the ear, and I can pick a few more, maybe there and there. Yeah, just a whole bunch to get that perimeter. And what I'm basically trying to do, maybe this is a little too inside. Let me deselect that and select like that. Okay, so I want a joint that's going to sit at around the base over here. So if I create a cluster from this selection, if I go deform, create a cluster, have one right there at about where I want my first joint. And then for the end joint, it's really simple. I just grab the tip of the ear right there and I create another cluster. So now I have 2 clusters to snap bones to. So if I select them and isolate them, and I grab my joint tool, so I go create joints, and I hold on the V key, I can snap to these 2. And they already come in oriented fairly correctly. And from here, I can attach it immediately, but I'm first going to resample. So I'm going to grab the first joint and the second joint that I just made and go resample. And I think this ear will do well with about 6 intermediary joints. So I'm going to hit resample. And I think this should suffice. I think this is good to get some fairly good deformation in the ear. I'm going to select the first joint, control right click and go select hierarchy, and try to bring the radius a little bit down. And it's time to connect it to the head joint. I feel safe connecting it to the head joint because all these other things are connected, and I don't think there's going to be an issue. Otherwise I would have connected it to up here, but I think I did run a test and it's fine. Let me see if adjusting this joint, yeah, now adjusts all of them. So I can adjust again. All right, let me turn on local rotation axis again. and it should turn it on for everything. And this is, I guess, already oriented in the correct direction. Just to be on the safe side, I will hit update now. Anyway, so that's it with these two clusters and this geometry. So we can delete them out the scene and bring my body back. And that is the ear joint system. This is going to receive a whole bunch of IK labels, and so is the head and neck and some other things. All right, so we'll continue placing the fit skeleton in the next lesson.